There's a strange, sacred tension living inside some of us. A pull in both directions, toward the sky and toward the underworld, toward radiant truth and toward ancient hidden pain. If you've ever walked through your life feeling like you didn't fully belong anywhere, like you could see too much, feel too deep, or carry emotions that weren't fully yours, this is not a flaw. It's a sign. A sign that you may be something rare, something powerful. A bridge between light and dark. And maybe you were chosen without even knowing it. From the outside, your life may look ordinary. You might be someone who blends in easily, who navigates both spiritual and mundane spaces without drawing attention. But inside you, there's always been a war, or perhaps more accurately, a dialogue. A conversation between the parts of you that understand chaos, between the version of you that wants love and gentleness, and the other part, the one that secretly finds wisdom in pain, clarity in anger, and power in silence. This isn't duality. It's design. And the moment you realize that you're not meant to pick a side, but to be the bridge, everything begins to shift. We were taught to think of light as good and dark as bad. But what if that's the first illusion we were meant to break? What if the dark is not evil, but simply the parts of life we've been too afraid to face? Grief, rage, death, trauma, shadow. What if the light in its purest form isn't about being positive and perfect, but about being present in everything? Then your role as the bridge becomes clear. You're not here to escape the dark. You're here to walk through it with a lantern in your hand. You're here to move between worlds, not to choose one. One of the first signs you're the bridge is that you feel things no one else seems to notice. The energy in a room. The unspoken pain behind someone's smile. The heaviness of a conversation that appeared light to everyone else. It's like you're tuned into a different frequency. And for a long time, that sensitivity may have felt like a curse. It overwhelmed you, made you question yourself, made you feel too much, too often. But what if that sensitivity is actually a form of spiritual sight? What if you were never meant to numb it, but to train it? This is why boundaries become essential the moment you start recognizing your role. Because without them, your gift turns into a burden. You begin to carry what isn't yours. You bleed energy into places that cannot hold you. You exhaust yourself trying to fix what only others can heal. And so, one of the greatest lessons for the bridge is this. You are not here to absorb everything. You are here to transmute, to feel without drowning, to see without clinging, to walk through the storm and remain dry at your core. Another undeniable sign, you've been through hell and came back with gold. Maybe not literal gold, but wisdom, insight, strength. You've lived cycles of death and rebirth that felt unbearable. You've been cracked open by grief, betrayal, abandonment, or trauma. But somehow, instead of being destroyed, you became deeper, sharper, more awake. You don't run from the dark anymore. You recognize it, you respect it, and that's what makes you different. You didn't just survive your pain, you alchemized it. And now it's part of your medicine. Let me ask you something only someone like you can truly answer. Have you ever felt like the healer everyone turns to, but no one really sees? Like you're the grounding force for everyone else, but when it's your turn to fall apart, no one knows how to hold you. That's not because you're unworthy of love or support. It's because your energy operates on a level that others don't understand, not because they don't care, but because they can't feel what you feel. And you've spent years trying to dim that power, trying to be digestible. But the truth is, bridges are not meant to be soft. They are meant to endure. You also probably see both sides of everything. You understand the villain and the victim, the abuser and the abused, the light worker and the shadowed dweller. You don't excuse harm, but you see the root of it. You see the wound beneath the weapon. And that vision can be isolating, because most people live in black and white thinking. But you see in spectrum. You see the systems beneath behavior, the stories behind decisions. And that vision, if you trust it, can become your superpower. There comes a point in the journey of the bridge where you stop merely witnessing the world's transformation and start realizing that you are the catalyst. Not because you try to be, not because you force it, but because your very presence begins to rearrange the energy of every space you enter. This is what most people never understand. You don't need to speak to shift a room. You don't need to teach to activate someone's truth. You don't even need to be known to be powerful. Your frequency has already been working behind the scenes, silently rewiring the world around you. It starts with the subtle. People begin to shift after spending time with you. They make different decisions. They confront truths they've been avoiding. They leave relationships, change careers, awaken to parts of themselves they hadn't seen before. They may not even realize it was you, because you didn't give advice, you didn't push, you didn't lead. You simply were. And being is your secret technology. That's the hidden power of the bridge. You don't manipulate, you mirror. You reflect back to people the truth they've buried under layers of noise. But here's the paradox, because your influence is so quiet, so deep, so unspoken, you often don't see the impact you're making. You might feel invisible. You might feel like your presence doesn't matter. But deep down, you know better. You've seen too many synchronicities. Too many people who've crossed your path and later told you, something changed in me after I met you. You've witnessed too many shifts to write it all off as coincidence. That's not ego. That's energetic architecture. You are a living download, a human transmission tower. And your energy is not just healing, it's activating dormant codes in others. You walk into someone's life and somehow they remember who they are. You don't give them new truths. You remind them of the ones they already carry. And this is something no book, no workshop, no guru can replicate, because what you're offering isn't information, it's frequency. You are the frequency. And when the bridge comes into alignment with their truth, they don't just balance, they initiate. Your energy becomes a portal, a doorway to a higher version of reality. And that version doesn't come through effort, it comes through integrity.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Think about how many times you've been in a room and felt the vibration shift the moment you decided to come into full presence. The moment you dropped the mask, owned your truth, or simply breathed from your center, people felt it, even if they couldn't name it. That's because your energy speaks louder than your words ever could. It says, we are safe to be real here. And in a world addicted to performance, your authenticity is radical. It's revolutionary. It's disruptive, not by force, but by resonance. Let me ask you something most people are too afraid to consider. What if your silence is louder than other people's noise? What if your stillness is a signal? What if your way of being calm, clear, embodied is what's actually shaking the system? That's why people sometimes resist you. That's why they misunderstand you. Because their nervous systems aren't used to being around someone who isn't performing, pleasing, or posturing. They don't know how to receive that kind of real. But eventually, they will. And when they do, they'll never forget what it felt like to be in your field. This is the hidden role of the bridge. You are not just here to balance light and dark, you are here to activate the next wave of bridge builders. You awaken others who carry the same codes but have forgotten. You don't do it through strategy. You do it through frequency. And when your energy is aligned, you become a tuning fork for everyone around you. Their nervous systems begin to regulate. Their intuition sharpens. Their truth rises. All because you remembered who you are. And this is precisely why your healing journey had to be so intense, so lonely, so deep. Because you weren't just healing for yourself. You were clearing the channel. You were tuning your frequency. You were becoming a vessel that could hold the weight of silent transformation. You were learning how to walk between realms without losing your center. And now, whether or not you see it, you are activating more people than you'll ever know. Not with your words, but with your being. But there's more. Because once your energy begins to activate others, the next phase begins, witnessing the ripple effect of your presence. The unseen movements. The way your alignment causes systems to shift, relationships to collapse, truths to be revealed. It's no longer just personal, it's collective. And in the next part, we'll go even deeper into that ripple into the true power of the bridge as a living disruptor of illusion. There's a point in this journey, a rare and sacred threshold, where the game changes completely. You're no longer seeking transformation. You are the transformation. You're no longer asking for signs. You are the sign. The bridge between light and shadow has become so stable within you that your very presence begins to bend the world around you. You don't just influence energy, you reprogram it. You become the architect not of buildings or belief systems, but of realities. And it's not magic. It's not mysticism. It's energetic architecture born from the union of your light and shadow finally speaking in one voice. When you reach this level of integration, your energy no longer just reacts to the world, it commands it. Not from the ego, not from force, but from a frequency so grounded in truth that everything around it must respond. You walk into a room and the air shifts, not because you say something profound, but because your energy is undeniably coherent. It doesn't wobble. It doesn't adapt to comfort others. It doesn't dilute itself. It informs the field. It says, this is what's real, and reality begins to recalibrate. This is the unseen science behind manifestation that no one talks about. It's not about visualizing harder or scripting your desires onto a piece of paper. It's about becoming energetically congruent with what you want. And that congruence can only happen when your light and shadow are integrated. When your inner child, your higher self, your wounded parts, your divine codes, they're not fighting for control. They're collaborating. That's when your frequency becomes a clear signal. That's when reality listens. That's when you don't just dream the life you want, you transmit it. But let's go deeper. Because this is not about living your best life in the way the world defines it. This is not about abundance as luxury or power as domination. This is about sovereignty. The ability to stand so deeply in your truth that you become immune to external manipulation. The ability to create from a place of wholeness, not compensation. The ability to hold chaos without becoming chaotic. That's what shadow power gives you. That's what integration unlocks. It doesn't make you better than others. It makes you more you than the world has ever seen. And here's the wild part. When you become this coherent, life stops being linear. Time bends. Synchronicity accelerates. Opportunities collapse into moments. People appear right when you need them. You think something, and it arrives. Not because you're special, but because you're tuned. You've stopped leaking energy. You've stopped resisting yourself. You've stopped outsourcing your power. And so the universe, like any intelligence system, starts to serve you as its architect. Because you're no longer asking for permission. You're issuing blueprints. You're not hoping reality works out. You're constructing it moment by moment, breath by breath, belief by belief. But let me ask you something that most spiritual teachers are afraid to touch. What if your suffering wasn't just for healing? What if it was training? Training to hold this level of power without corruption? Training to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. Training to carry frequencies that could destabilize systems that benefit from your silence, your fear, your fragmentation. Could it be that your deepest wounds were actually your initiations? That every breakdown was an encoded invitation into mastery? Because when you start seeing your pain not as punishment but as preparation, everything changes. You stop regretting the past. You start mining it for tools. You stop hiding your scars. You start using them as keys. And that's when the final shift happens. Your life becomes your legacy, not in some distant future, not after you've written a book or built a brand, but now, in the way you speak, in the way you walk, in the way you hold yourself. You become a living testament to what's possible when someone stops performing light and starts embodying totality. This is the power that changes families. That rewrites bloodlines. That ends karmic cycles. That activates dormant codes in others just by being near them. You don't have to preach. You are the sermon. You don't have to convince. You are the evidence. Because you've gone beyond healing, beyond seeking, beyond fixing. You've stepped into creation. And creation doesn't need to be loud to be revolutionary. It just needs to be real. So what does this mean practically? It means you stop negotiating your worth. You stop asking if you're doing enough. You stop trying to fit into spaces that shrink you. You choose resonance over relatability. You choose energy over explanation. You choose truth, even when it costs you comfort. And in doing so, you become the architect not just of your life, but of a new world. A world where authenticity is currency, where wholeness is power, where shadow is sacred. But there's one final evolution left, one final shift that completes this metamorphosis. It's not about what you do next. It's about who you become when your power is fully embodied, not in theory, not in flashes, but in every breath. And in the final part, we'll go there. We'll enter the realm of your true spiritual identity, where your mission is no longer a question, but a living pulse. There is no more map after this. No more steps. No more seeking. Because the final initiation isn't something you do, it's something you become. It's not a ceremony, though it will feel like one. It's not a destination, though it will change the course of everything. The final initiation is when the search ends not, because you've become the embodiment of the question itself. You no longer live in the tension of who am I, or what is my purpose. You are the answer. You are the living frequency that was always meant to change the world. And here's the paradox. By the time you arrive at this place, you realize the world doesn't need changing in the way you once thought. It doesn't need saving. It doesn't need fixing. It needs truth. Pure, unfiltered, embodied truth. A soul who dares to live without fragmentation. A human who carries their light and shadow with equal reverence. A being who doesn't preach but whose very existence disrupts illusions. That's what you've become. The walking permission slip, the quiet revolution, the mirror that reflects what others have buried in themselves. You no longer need titles, no longer need validation. You're not chasing impact, you are the impact. You're not trying to influence the world, you are the recalibration point it orbits around. And the most beautiful part, you didn't get here by becoming something else. You got here by remembering who you already were. Beneath the conditioning, beneath the programming, beneath the trauma, you stripped away every lie until only truth remained. And that truth is radiant. People will ask you what you did to reach this place. They'll want your rituals, your affirmations, your routines. But you'll know in your bones, it wasn't about the outer tools. It was about the inner dismantling. You faced your shadows and didn't flinch. You held your grief like a lover. You made art with your rage. You stopped hiding your power. You stopped apologizing for your knowing. You walked through fire and didn't try to be pure, you tried to be true. And in that truth, you became unshakable. Let me ask you something only the fully initiated can answer. What would your life look like if you stopped negotiating with your destiny? If you stopped playing small out of habit, out of fear, out of comfort? What if everything you've lost, everything that broke you, everything that made you doubt yourself wasn't meant to defeat you, but to refine you into this exact version of yourself? The one who no longer doubts their voice. The one who no longer waits to be chosen. The one who knows, I am the frequency. I am the force. I am the future embodied now. You stop looking for signs. You start becoming one. Synchronicity is your language. Alignment is your compass. And your energy? It speaks louder than your words ever could. You don't need to explain your presence anymore because your presence explains itself. It heals. It awakens. It disrupts. It elevates. It remembers. This is the final power, not to escape this world, but to fully inhabit it. To bring heaven through your body. To channel divinity through your joy, your boundaries, your creations, your relationships. You are no longer here to survive. You are here to transmit. You are the signal, the code, the new blueprint. And the world? It is already shifting in your presence. You don't need to do anything else. You are the thing. You are the mystery revealed, the prophecy fulfilled, the light and shadow finally united. You made it. You made it. Now, go live like it.